The United Arab Emirates is hosting a border management and technology summit at Expo 2022 Dubai, where countries will exchange ideas on how they are efficiently managing their borders. Just last year, the South African government gave the green light for the establishment of the Border Management Authority, which will manage the country's borders, clamp down on illegal immigration and improve security. It will consolidate departments such as health, environmental affairs and the army, which currently also work under one umbrella at ports of entry. The BMA will begin its work from April and falls under the Department of Home Affairs. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo is with one of the commissioners from the agency who is also in Dubai. Ziyanda, very good morning to you. An important time to discuss and exchange ideas around matters such as this.
Apt is it then, Paul, that the South African Border Management Authority is here in Dubai at Expo 2020 to actually exchange ideas with other countries about how to effectively manage borders. You'll know that our situation at home when it comes to our porous borders, especially when it comes to land ports of entry, has become a bone of contention and has actually been one of the main contributing factors to the immigration crisis that we currently find ourselves in South Africa. And you'll know that the headlines in just the last 2 or 3 weeks have been dominated by movements such as Operation Dudula, which have taken matters into their own hands when it comes to the law enforcement of illegal immigrants. And I'm now joined by Dr. Michael Masiapato. You're the Commissioner for the Border Management Authority, which was only recently established, and you're here to join that summit. And it's very important. Let's maybe start off by explaining what you do as the Border Management Authority, since you're such a new entity and you're currently being housed by the Home Affairs Department.
No, thank you very much, Ziyanda. The first thing is, as the Border Management Authority, our main responsibility is fairly located in the Section 5 of the Border Management Authority Act. Mainly, we are actually established to facilitate the legitimate movement of, trade in and out of the country. But secondly, we are also responsible for facilitating the legitimate movement of persons in and out of the country. That is the main responsibility that we have. But additional to that, we also have to deal with interjurisdictional crimes that will be taking place along our borderline, working together with members of the South African National Defence Force. That in broad is the responsibility of the Border Management Authority.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Masiapato, you will know that at home currently we are faced with an immigration crisis, which has always been there, but it's been brought to the fore again with these movements now that are literally taking matters into their own hands. And I guess my question to you is to say, what is going to change with the existence of this Border Management Authority? Because it's not like soldiers weren't always there at the borders. It's not like the Health and Environmental Affairs departments weren't there. It's actually a failure on the part of law enforcement in some aspects to actually do their jobs. What are you going to be doing differently?
Firstly, what we are going to be doing differently, if you are to start in the port of entry itself, the first thing that we are going to do is to integrate all the various functions of all the various departments which have been located in the border environment itself. And in doing that, we are then going to make sure that we create a seamless systems that are going to make sure that the facilitation of the movement of trade as well as persons is done actually seamlessly. But the most important thing, we are also going to try and do work to reduce the levels of corruption in our ports of entry, because that has been one of the contributing factors that has been creating a situation wherein people had been coming into the country outside the legal framework. But more importantly, our other role, which is the role that is more critical to the point that we've raised, is our employment of the border guards. I think you might probably be aware that we have just made an advertisement of the border guards that are going to be employed through into the Border Management Authority. And we only, in a way, did 200 as the initial intake. But the most important thing, the border guards are going to be having the responsibility to work together with the SANDF. But the more critical issue, they are going to be, doing static deployment at the vulnerable segments of the borderline. Those are the segments wherein people had exploited and have been using to cross into the country illegally. And arising from that, we'll be able to release members of the SANDF to do high mobility activities, so that at the end of the day, the work of both then complement each other in making sure that we are able to address this issue of illegal migration ultimately.
What are some of the lessons or the exchanges that you've so far gathered as you're here in Dubai when you look at how it's not only just the land ports of entry, there's also the airports of entry, right? And you and I would know that even just coming into this country, there are very strict controls that we don't currently have in South Africa. What are you going to take from here and ensure that you implement back home?
Yeah, firstly, in this summit that I'm attending now, there is a number of experts on border management coming from all over the world, effectively from almost all the 7 continents of the world. And to that extent, we are basically exchanging best practices in terms of how do we better do border management in the 21st century? How do we deploy technologies in the 21st century? And arising from that, we are then able to, in a way, engage on the best practices. Most of the countries, like here in Dubai, for instance, the Emirates had actually advanced, especially in the deployment of technology, especially in terms of their air travel, as it were. And that on its own are the areas that we are going to, in a way, learn out of the engagement and out of that be able to advance. But the other thing that I just want to add, Ziyanda, which is very important, is the fact that I have been given the responsibility together with my team to integrate a multi-agency approach in the border environment and ultimately establish a border management authority with one command and control. And that is key. So there are other countries that have already done that. And one of the key things that one is here to learn is on how they have done it. For example, the UK has done that successfully. If you look at Canada, they've also done that successfully. If you look at the US, they've done that successfully. And all of those activities are very critical in terms of what is it that we need to learn from them so that we don't repeat some of the mistakes that they've actually done.
How much pressure are you under right now, Commissioner Masiapato, to make sure that this Border Management Authority, which at some stage will, I believe, leave the Home Affairs Department, but how much pressure are you under as the BMA with the current crisis, which at any given point in time now could spill over into violence? And I guess now, now that you've been established, we're going to be looking to you for answers.
No, you see, Ziyanda, that is very true. The pressure is very much serious. And the reason why the pressure is serious is because I would say myself and the team are actually having a very serious competing interest. The first one is to, in a way, establish Border Management Authority ultimately, make sure that the governance structures are set up, make sure that the functions are proclaimed into BMA by the President, making sure that all the human resources related issues are done. And so that is I would say, a boardroom-based kind of work. But at the same time, we have to be dealing with the real operational issues on the ground. For instance, in December, we ran a successful festive season operation.
Yes.
Now, as we are going into the Easter holidays, we are going to run another festive season operation, as it were. So at the same time, we have to establish BMA so that by the 1st of April 2023, we exit the Department of Home Affairs incubation and we become a Schedule 3A public entity. So whilst we are supposed to be doing that, at the same time we have to be dealing with the current situation, as it were. But just on the issue around the activities inside the country.
Yes.
So that is I would say, the difficult reality, because Border Management Authority is not necessarily going to be operating inside the country, but is going to be operating on the borderline. But we do have what we call
you're the first point at which problems actually emanate.
Definitely. So what it basically means is, inside the country, because there are still a lot of illegal individuals in the country. So what we call the inspectorate or immigration inspectorate, which will remain in the Department of Home Affairs, they are the ones who are going to do some bit of operations together with the police in terms of, I would say, looking out for those that are illegal in the country and do the processes of deportation. The key issue is, my responsibility is to make sure that those that are deported don't walk back into the country illegally. And that is why you might not see the impact of BMA just now, but in the longer term, as more deportations are taken, as more of the work we do on the borderline to stop people from crossing back into the country, that on its own is going to start to demonstrate that we are starting to have some bit of stability on the ground.
All right, thank you very much. That's Dr. Michael Masiapato. He's a commissioner at the Border Management Authority. I guess a lot of the work then is going to rest on the operations, which includes the South African National Defence Force, the SAPS and other departments, and this is actually where we've seen corruption emanating. So just how much of that will be done away with the establishment of this new Border Management Authority, and also ensuring that at our South African borders they're no longer as porous, and being able to take lessons from this summit that's taking place here at Expo 2020 Dubai and implementing it in South Africa. Mpho, it's back to you.
Thanks, Ziyanda. Let's leave it there for now. Taking lessons, of course, will be quite important, especially looking at the situation of our borders here in South Africa.